Hey, greetings everybody, Thunder Hands here. Yeah, I made it through to 2014. Amazing, isn't it? Let's talk about doom and gloom today. Doom and gloom. Seems to be a lot of talk about that around the internet lately. Not lately, for quite some time actually. And I was thinking about that whole concept of doom and gloom, and it's the end of the world, and things are getting bad, and not that things aren't getting bad, because I've been guilty of, I don't want to say guilty, but I have told people about world conditions before and kind of gave up on that one because number one, they don't listen, and number two, it's really just getting so bad that you don't even want to talk about it. And so I guess that could be called a little bit of doom and gloom there. Let's get that out of the way right away. But let's think about the concept of doom and gloom and why there might be doom and gloom or why this whole thing is happening. Now these are just words that that come to me through visions and through whatever means, dreams that I have, intuition, connection with the high spiritual source. I think about doom and gloom. I think, where did that belief come from? The first thing that came into my mind is, why is it that everybody thinks, okay, that things have to get really, really bad before they can get better? I mean, when you look at it, let's take the Bible for example. You gotta have Armageddon, or you gotta have the end of the world, or you gotta have Left Behind, or you gotta have the rapture, or you gotta have the Great Tribulation, or you gotta have all this horrific stuff happen before the good stuff happens. Who says? Who says that has to be that way? And yet that's what everybody believes. Where do they get that from? Well, they get it from belief systems, and belief systems include or encompass religion. That's the main culprit. Because I don't care what, mostly Western religions, I'll say, I have to say that, and a lot of the world is Western religion. So, like Christians and, you know, that whole thing. So, and they definitely have a doom and gloom type attitude. Look for the end times, look for the signs of the end times. And then you have other religions and other, you've always had the different mythological beliefs. I call them mythological. Now, am I saying God, or am I saying that there's no divine? No, I hope there is. I believe there is. I don't believe in the traditional God aspect. I believe in, it's okay if you say God. I believe, in the Tao, or I believe in the divine, the divine consciousness or the divine intelligence. And I pray, because you better be praying now. But anyway, so I thought about this, this whole belief system about, where do people get this from? Where do people get this doom and gloom attitude? And you see these guys on the internet. I won't mention any names. They know who they are. But you see these guys on the internet that constantly are talking about this. One might be a financial guy, and one might be a libertarian, or one might be a news guy, alternative news guy. I think that covers about the three that I kind of keep tabs on. I give them a little grief sometimes because they go on there and I don't really know what their agenda is, but they're constantly driving this. It's, there's going to be massive. We know that the world's in bad shape, okay? But they're always talking about some other thing in connection with it, like their agenda on entrepreneurship or money, or and it all seems to have some kind of hookup with collecting gold or money or maybe real estate or whatever. There's always some other agenda involved, or a political purpose. But doom and gloom is something that's been around in our belief systems for a long time. It's got to get worse before it gets better. Well, where does mankind get these? Where do religions, you know, where do these belief systems come from? I mean, did mankind one day look around and say, well, I see that nature, has decay and renewal, so I suppose, that some of it might come from long, long time ago when some of the religions were being formed, some of the what they call pagan religions, which just means, worship of nature or being in love with nature. And so, some of the people might have looked around and said, well, you see it in nature, so maybe that's the way it's got to be in real life or in our reality. It's interesting, isn't it, thinking about it? I'm sure you have your own thoughts on it. But the thing I don't like about it is if you have that mentality all the time where you think that things got to get worse before they get better, well, then that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Why? Because of what we call the collective consciousness. I mean, there's a lot of words you could put on it: collective consciousness, collective thinking, mass thinking. And if you don't think that what people think have an effect on the outside world, you better start thinking again. Because as above, so below. As above, so below. That means we create our own reality. We are creators. I do believe that much. In alliance with the Supreme Intelligence, the Divine, the Ancient of Ancients, the male-female principle. Now, it would be nice if people would just start thinking about things getting better than they are without thinking that they have to get worse. Now, maybe they will get worse, and there's a lot of stuff happening right now that I've talked about before, and I'm not going to go over again because I don't want to be. I've come to kind of an epiphany on that. I've kind of had a realization that repeating those words about whatever's happening in the world over and over and over and over again has a power to it. And I'll leave it up to each individual to discover what's going on in the world on all levels: geopolitical, geographical, spiritually. I mean, every other way. I don't think that you'd have to be a blind man, which a lot of people are, not to see what's happening around the world. Now, being a Native American and a Taoist, I'm really trying now hard to get into detachment, nature, and not looking at all the negative comments and negative news and negative media that surrounds us. In other words, sometimes I call it being in seclusion, or following the integral way or the red road, depending on whether you're Taoist, or if you're Taoist you call it the integral way, and if you're Native American you call it the red road. Think good thoughts, people, and pray to whoever you want to pray to. because it feels good. Okay? It doesn't matter if you think anybody's listening to you or, you know, it feels good to talk to the divine. Okay? And if you want to flip a coin and say, well, somebody's listening or not listening, doesn't matter whether it lands heads or tails, doesn't do any harm, okay, to talk to somebody that you think is on a higher level than yourself. Well, that higher level might be your higher self, might be your God self. Somebody's listening. You can't go wrong saying positive affirmations. And when you pray, you don't pray, like, save me, you ask blessings to be bestowed on the planet and your friends and relatives and neighbors and everybody. You ask for good feelings and elimination of negative influence. You don't have to get into details, and it's always good to think about the other person, your fellow man, because there's a lot of people out there that are hurting emotionally and physically, and we don't know why we're walking this path, and that's something that, that's where maybe trust and faith in this divine plan, whatever it is appropriate. Because if there is a supreme consciousness, we sure don't have any idea as to how it works, other than what we feel. John Coltrane, great sax player, did a song once called "A Creator Has a Master Plan" and "A Love Supreme," and you want to think in those terms. Now these people, they get on there and they talk about gearing up for, you know, hundreds of millions of people dying and things happening that very well could happen. I'm not saying they can't, but why dwell on it? All you have to do is, in your own mind, be prepared, okay, for anything, and that means on a spiritual level first. It means on a spiritual level. And being prepared on a spiritual level means that if any kind of end is to come, and it could just be your own end as a person living on this planet, which we all face, the mortality of it all. Acceptance, okay, and detachment at the same time. Just accept it and detach and say, hey, I go with the flow. That's all you need to say is I go with the flow. Because I don't care how much you beat your head against a brick wall and wail and whine about conditions in the world. Is it going to change them? And I know by now, personally, that because I've tried to, in the past, you see you grow. You have to grow. You have to go with the flow and change. That's why I like being Taoist, because when change comes, you don't stay in your old stance, but you kind of flow with whatever's happening. And I don't know, I just, like I say, I kind of had an epiphany, and I thought, well, Great Spirit, Grandmother, Earth, Grandfather, or Divine Mother, Father, Mother of the universe. You got to trust it. Because things, when they really look bleak, who else can you trust? You trust man? No. Trust the politicians? No. Trust the religious leaders? No. You trust your own inner dwelling of spirit. And that comes from connection to the divine. So instead of thinking about doom and gloom, you want to start thinking thoughts like, well, there's good things going to happen down the road. That doesn't mean you're deluded because you say a positive affirmation. Who's to say that thoughts can't change or words can't change outcomes? I think it's been proven that it can. So what if the reason that we see war and all this stuff that we call doom and gloom and financial problems and nuclear problems and all this stuff and the destruction of the planet, who's to say that the reason all that stuff isn't happening is because man thinks that's what should happen? Oh, this has got to happen. And you know, like I said before, a lot of this is connected to religious thought. Because they think, well, the only way that we're going to get out of this situation, the only way that I'm going to get quote unquote saved, is for things to come to a head. For there to be a judgment day, a doom and gloom day, a destruction day of all evil. And many have to die during this. Well, you know, I'm not saying by any means that you should give up your belief system or that won't happen. I'm just offering thoughts for consideration. Is it wise to dwell on it? Because in the past I've kind of beat that drum and I look at some of the things that I've done in the past, some of my videos, and I still like them because it's truth, but am I dwelling just on the negative? There's a lot of things you can do to change the inner aspect, and the inner reflects to the outer. I think the best thing you can do is be an example with love in your heart, because no matter what happens, you know, if you put out love, if you put out, you know, the I Ching, which is a ancient oracle, Chinese oracle, where you throw coins and draw yarrow stalks to get what's happening on a synchronicity level at that particular moment. There's a hexagram, I think it's hexagram number, could be 50, I'm not sure, called the cauldron. And the cauldron stands for your mind, or your, you know, the cauldron being where your brain sets in your skull, and what kind of thoughts you carry there, what kind of thoughts you keep in the cauldron, because what you're cooking up in the cauldron is what's going to appear in your life, or could appear, holding specific thoughts all the time. So, what kind of thoughts do you want to hold? Had a wise person tell me, how miserable do you want to be? It's up to you. You can, you know, turn the volume up to 10, or you can turn it down to 2. Or how joyful do you want to be? You can turn the volume up to 10, or you can turn it down to 2. We do have some control over, you know, our walk or journey of ourselves, what we call ourselves on this planet. We do have some control. And it's about what you feed your mind with, what you expose yourself to. And the only real saving grace is going beyond the duality to the spiritual. All these people think, like I talked about some people on YouTube that do these things like, okay, there's a financial guy, and it's like their whole thing is, well, the only way you're going to survive the horrific stuff that's coming down the road is if you collect gold and silver and buy it and store it up because there won't be any money. I get on their case sometimes. I go, yeah, what are you going to do with that gold and silver? Are you going to eat it or things get bad? Because if it gets like what they were talking about, and it very well could, I'm not arguing with that, where there's no food on the shelves, or it's like Mad Max, that movie. I said, do you think, if you start shaving pieces of silver and gold off your gold bars, that the bad guys aren't going to go, ooh, guess we better get him? It's just, you can't put your faith in material things. I mean, all religious books say that. I'm going to get a bunch of guns and I'm a mean dude, man. I'm going to blow everybody away. Oh, yeah? Okay. I'm not against guns. I was raised around them. I got, you know, a good attitude about them being a tool like anything else. So I'm not, some kind of anti-gun person. I'm not. I'm a native, I'm a hunter. I mean, if I have to be. That's another thing, they talk about survival, and most of them don't know the first thing about survival or tracking or living in the wilderness or camping out or any of that stuff. I mean, if they really want to help their fellow man, they would talk about, what are the four basic things you need to survive in the wilderness, that type of thing. Some schools teach this, and like I'm kind of an old tracker that raised in Arizona and went on a lot of treks with my dog and just basically lived outside and knew how to track animals and look at sign and what to do to survive in difficult situations and how to find people that are lost, that type of thing. But most people don't know anything about that. They wouldn't know what to do if, there wasn't any food on the shelves in the supermarkets anymore. But the point I'm trying to make is you can't put your faith, you have to go beyond this illusion of life, because that's all it is. Because when we leave this life, we go somewhere else. So basically it's all been a dream or an illusion, hasn't it? And whether we leave on our own accord naturally, or whether we leave by somebody else's machinations, what difference does it make? We leave. So why worry about it? And the planet will take care of itself. Always has, always will. Doesn't matter whether we're here or not. I mean, sure, you can have a lot of heartache because of you thinking of your grandchildren and what they inherit, their legacy, but everybody has everybody has something laid on their plate in this world, and nobody really asked to be born. Now, some may argue with that, but you're here and you make the best of it, and you try to have courage, try to have faith in whatever placed us here, or whatever purpose that we're here. But there's one thing for sure, and that's spouting negativity all the time is not going to do it. It isn't going to cut it. And I used to get down on people, and I'm kind of still a little irritated about people that walk around not knowing what's really going on. I call them sleepers, but maybe they're better off now. I mean, up to a point where I think, I think that it could make a difference, and it still might. I mean, yeah, people should wake up, and but maybe one of the ways of waking up is waking up to thinking better thoughts about things, because maybe thought can change the world. It's worth a try at this point, because when you get to that point where you think, well, I better not talk anymore to people about what's going on because they're not listening, or when you get to that point of where you think that no matter what you say, it's not going to make any difference anyway, you can't save the world. And if you're out there spouting about doom and gloom, and then you're talking about buying gold or real estate in order to survive, in order to have enough money. On the one hand, some of these people, they talk about horrific stuff that there's really no surviving. I mean, money's not going to get you through, let's put it that way. And then they talk about money and how you can be self-sufficient and be your own boss and have your own gold stashed up in case you really need it, because money's not going to be worth anything. Well, that may be entirely true. Okay? But the point I'm trying to make is, if you're talking about survival, like I said before, that has to do with knowing how to live with nature, like the original indigenous people of this land. It doesn't have to do with how much money I got, because that ain't going to get you anywhere. It's just plain simple reasoning, that people are the only people that are going to survive are going to be the ones with money, man, or gold or resources. So does that mean that, let's just think about that aspect. Does that mean that if, say, you saved up your money and your gold and all this, and that you're looking around and there's somebody that's hurting after this cataclysm event or whatever, or this breakdown of society, does that mean that if there's somebody there that needs help, you're not going to help them because you got your gold and you got your money and you got and the rest be damned? Now, how does that square with people that call themselves Christian? And the Good Samaritan, that whole thing means you're not going to you're not going to live up to your belief system? Or what about just, you don't even have to be Christian, what about just that inner moral compass that says you reach out and help your fellow man? Does that mean you're going to just trash that concept? So basically, what I'm saying is, I don't think that the doom and gloom thing is a good thing. I don't think it's, and especially when used in conjunction with other agendas, because then it's not about that you really care about people. It's that you're scaring the people. And this is the bottom line. You're scaring the people, just like religion, so that they'll move in the direction you're talking about, whatever your agenda is, whether it's a certain political agenda or financial agenda, your belief system. Some people go, well, I'm here because I love the people and I want to teach them a better way. I want to show them about finances. I want to show them, but yet they don't really. How about if they take some money out of their pocket and, back somebody that's poor, or build a shelter for the homeless, or I'm just sick of the hypocrisy, you know. And I'm not any saint, and I'm not anybody that has never been hypocritical, or I think we all fall into that category sometimes by accident or just by human nature, but to perpetuate it purposely, that's another story. So I don't think that the doom and gloom thing, and and maybe even the government perpetuates that. I mean, obviously they do, because that's another religion, it's another belief system, and they perpetuate it through war and, you know, the constant threat hanging over our head of whatever they consider to be a threat, terrorism or civil unrest or whatever agenda they're into. So, people, the best thing you can do right now, and I don't do too many videos, and like I always say, I might not ever do another one, but when I feel like I need to talk, I talk. And as long as I'm still here, might as well. And I hope it helps somebody, but don't give up hope and faith in the divine, whatever you call it, whether you call it God. And when I say religion and the divine, I'm not. Those are two different things. There's spirituality and religion. And I'm not a religious man. I don't think that I have to follow a set of dogmatic rules and regulations laid down by any book or religion. It's just something I feel connected to on a higher level, that connection of hope that there's something out there listening, someone listening. um, you got to believe that. The native peoples believed it. Well, you don't have to believe it, see. I'm sorry I said that. You don't have to believe it, but let's put it this way, there's no harm in it. And there's really even no harm in people that call themselves Christians believing in God or whatever, as long as you don't force it on others, and as long as you don't have, you know, expectations that may not be the reality of the situation. It's always good to think outside the envelope. The reality of the situation is we're here. Someday we're not going to be here. And while we're here, to give and receive love. I had somebody tell me that it's all about giving and receiving love, and really that's what it's about. Is opening up your heart, being modest, being, you know, a good example to others through your actions, and not being, somebody that takes part in the affairs of the world. Because look at it. So I'm going to end this video now, but I'm going to put a link to my website, or several websites. I have several. I'm a writer. I have a book out called Listen to the Wind, Speak from the Heart, and another one called Emergence. So, I'm going to put a link down below to to my main website, the Native American Taoist, which links to another Spirit of Crazy Horse, which has which is a place where you can get my books. And I also play Native American flute, and I have some CDs out. So if you're interested in that, um, it's there for you, you know. And I think there's some wise counsel in my books and some direction that you might like. If you like the way I speak, then you'll check it out. If you don't, then I'm not into like the super sales pitch. Anyway, I love my fellow man, and I love the planet, and I love the creative intelligence, whatever is guiding us, and I trust it, whether I'm here or not. I have to put trust in that there is something beyond my mere understanding. So blessings to you all, and I love you all. Until next time, if there is a next time, take care, adios, hasta luego, bye.